Welcome to the Piston Fanatic. I'm your host, Dave Dalton, and I'm excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons as we go on this fantastic voyage together. I've been a diehard Piston fan since the days of Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. I've also been a varsity basketball coach of a very successful program in northern Michigan. Currently, my daughter and I are coaching one of the best AAU teams in the country. Well, with all the anticipation, and I've been on pins and needles for like about 2 months, waiting to see what was going to happen with the trade market. And when all the smoke cleared, it appears that we have James Wiseman, who we traded. It was a three-way trade with the Warriors and the Hawks and the Pistons. So the Warriors came away with like 5 second-round draft picks, who they ended up flipping and getting Gary Payton Jr. But the Hawks ended up getting Saddiq Bey, and our Pistons got James Wiseman. So I know there's a lot of mixed feelings among Pistons Nation, and we're just going to try to work our way through that a little bit for our 14-42 Detroit Pistons. But James Wiseman was the second pick in the draft in 2021, and at that time he was at the top of Troy Weaver's draft board. So Troy loved him back then, and so that had a lot to do with it. I'm sure he did a lot of background research and really liked the player and all of his potential. And that's what this trade really is. I mean, Saddiq has been a good, solid player. Saddiq will be a good NBA player, but there was just a low ceiling for him. And trading for Wiseman, I know a lot of people are really down on him right now, but the truth is he came into college and something weird happened with his recruitment, and he ended up getting to only play like 3 games, if that, in college. And then the next year, he gets hurt playing for Golden State, and it's just tough. And then he got hurt again the next year, and then he's playing on this Warriors team that is loaded with lots of talent and lots of guys that take lots of shots. And so things didn't work out that way. But from all accounts, everybody that I listened to that is involved with the Warriors said that he's just a great person, a hard worker, and they've recognized his talent, but it just wasn't fitting with the Warriors. But James Wiseman, we feel like he's been this huge bust, but if you look at his career average for games where he played 20 to 29 minutes, he averaged 14 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 1.2 blocks on 55% from the floor, 35% on threes, and only 64% from the line. But those other numbers are all good. And so it's kind of crazy that he didn't get more opportunities. He ended up, like I said, he was injured 2 seasons, and then he went to the G League and played some. And the Warriors would bring him up, they'd stick him in for a little bit, and things didn't work out the best. But executives for the Warriors wanted to keep him. Their plan was to have that the older part of the Warriors with Clay and Steph and Draymond and those guys, that they would keep on trying to win, and at the same time that they would develop these young players that they had drafted high. And so it just hasn't seemed to work out for them, and they have struggled bad this year. The Warriors have, they're about 500 this year, and they have all those great players. So anyway, I believe that it was a great trade, and I know that a lot of people will disagree with me, and we have a lot to see, but I think that in the position that the Pistons are in right now, it, for a lot of reasons, was way worth the gamble. So you really want to not just be good, you want to be great. And he still has a chance to be great. I know people say we have already, we have Duran, and he's been a monster. He's playing better and better every game. And Bagley, and he's been hurt a lot of the year, and so we really haven't really got to see possibly what he can do. Stu has been, it's kind of been decided that he's going to go to the 4, and and he needs to shoot the 3 well, which again he has been really struggling for quite some time now. So that's still a work in progress, and we have to see. And we have about 25 games left to see how some of those things play out. But I just going to read something. You've heard me talk about Saddiq, and all season I've talked to you about, Saddiq, he scored 20 points and shot this whatever percentage. Some days it was good, some days it was bad. He had good stretches and bad stretches, which is he's done his whole career. He's been very up and down. But I was recognizing this year that he had these games and he had 0 assists. And it was evident by watching him play that he all he could think about was shooting the ball. That he got the ball, and unless he absolutely couldn't shoot it, he was going to chuck it up there. And I thought maybe I was biased. Maybe that was just my opinion and what I saw. I talked to you about um, different situations where he had 2-on-1 and the defense completely committed to him, and he still shot it instead of passing to his wide open teammate under the basket. And so it was interesting. James Edwards, who writes for The Atlantic, and he covers the Pistons every day, and I'm just going to read what they said. It said that the Pistons' base style of play was starting to wear thin on some of Detroit's organization. He had the ability to score in bunches and did so often, but his shot selection and at times turned tunnel vision went against what the team wanted to see from him as a player. So I think they wanted him to be more of a 3-and-D guy, and he wasn't good on defense, but he was starting to force shots, and every time he got it, and then as he drove, he wasn't ever looking to pass. And so I think, that, my last podcast was Selfish Saddiq, and it appears to me that the organization as a whole felt the same way about him. So I think that played into trading him. I'm fascinated that they traded him to the Hawks. The Hawks have, they have their own problems. They have a lot of talent. They made it to the Eastern Conference Finals one year. They were kind of a surprise team, but they've been struggling the last couple years, and including this year. And they have so many forwards. They have John Collins, who the Pistons were, there's information from sources that say the Pistons were trying to get John Collins, and I'm not sure exactly if they were trying to trade Bogey for him, but somehow that trade fell through at the end. There was even talk about a three-way trade for John Collins to go to the Suns, who ended up getting Durant, and then I don't know who the Pistons would have sent out or taken back, but that trade didn't work. I spoke in previous episodes that I would have loved to have gotten John Collins. It's a little bit of a gamble, but he's 25. He's 6'9". He can shoot the three. He's one of the few players that ever played in the NBA that had 63s and 60 dunks, 60 blocks and 63s in the same season. So that's a unique, skill set that he had. But anyway, we didn't get him. There's still a chance, at the end of the season, once trade open up again, that we still could maybe trade for him, but who knows. So there were a lot of factors with Saddiq, but I don't know what's going to happen. He loves to shoot the ball, and he was more effective when he did get more shots. So like his second year when we got Jeremy Grant, and Saddiq struggled so bad at the beginning of the season, and then when Jeremy Grant got hurt, then Saddiq got more shots and he started to play better. But and then last year he had that 51 point game against Orlando, who was basically playing their G League team, and we had none of our starters playing. I don't know, the guys were injured and they were holding guys out because I think that we were somewhat in a tank mode. So, he's shown some signs, but it's been always inconsistent. It's always been up and down. And I think then like I said, they've seen that he is selfish, but I do wish Saddiq the best of luck. It's fascinating to me what is going to happen with all those forwards. They have AJ Griffin, and they have they have a lot of guys forwards that can score the ball. John Collins. And so I don't know what they're going to do. They traded away Herter last year because they had too many forwards. So now they add another forward. So just interesting what happens in the NBA, what one team sees and another team doesn't. So the problem was too, in my opinion, and I'm not the only one that shared this opinion, but playing him with Bogey was they basically played the same position, and they both were mediocre at best on defense. They both were, not that athletic, and they both could get beat off the dribble, and they're just not great athletes, and they both could score, and they both, like I said, they played the same position. So it was really redundant for us to have both of those. So I felt like I would have been, I love Bogey, and I'm glad that we have him still. The only thing that I'm worried about is that he can help us win games, and we still need to get that draft pick, and we'll talk about that later. But Troy said, he loves Livers, and a lot of people love Livers, and he hasn't always got to play consistently, and this is going to give him his chance. And and I've been beating the drum all year. We need to find out who can do what. And even though there's only 25 games left, hopefully Livers gets it. Troy said that he wants Livers to be a big part of their future and what they're trying to do. I think what Livers does on the court, he does just basically shoot the three. He does work really hard on defense. He's one of the best connectors on our defensive team. He talks more than anybody, and he helps better on defense. So yeah, so I think that Livers is going to get an opportunity which he wasn't going to get as long as Bojan and Saddiq were both there playing. Plus, then there's only so many shots to go around. So that's going to be very fascinating to see what happens with Livers. I'm excited for him. I hope that he can stay healthy. That's been a big struggle for him, is to stay healthy. And like I said, I'm not sure Saddiq. They have Trae Young, and if you're a player, I know people like Trae Young, and he is a good player. He gets a lot of points and a lot of assists, but um, he has the ball all the time. He dominates the ball, and so all these other players, and they just got Devontae Murray, who's a really good player and a scorer. So their two guards are both pretty ball dominant, and then they got all those other forwards that are good, that are going to want shots. And so it's just where I just don't see that Saddiq is going to get the number of shots that he's used to getting on the Pistons, and then how happy is he going to be with that? So again, the draft is still coming up, and I still believe that our best chance to have a great team in the future is for us to finish in the bottom three. Also, early in the season, I explained how, if the the bottom four picks are drawn out of the lottery. So all the bottom 14 teams each have a certain number of ping pong balls, depending on how bad they are. The teams with the three worst records have a 14% chance. The team with the fourth worst record has a 12.5% chance. And then it starts going down from there. But the picks for the lottery, the first four picks are the only picks that are drawn out of the ping pong ball. So those are lottery. So if you finish with the worst record, and the worst you can get is the fifth pick, because if there's three teams that jump, if there are four teams that jump ahead of you, and all the worst teams don't get one of those lottery picks, then the teams above them get one. Then that pushes you back to the fifth spot, and then the second worst record will get the sixth spot in the lottery, in the draft, I mean. So I know it's confusing to me. I know it really well, but I'm not doing a very good job of explaining it. The bottom line is we want to finish with the worst record. We want to play to win. I think that if we would have traded Bojan, that would have really sold it. So we would have had a worse record and would have ensured us probably getting one of the worst picks, one of the best picks, excuse me. We still want to get that 14% chance to get Wembanyama, or we want to get Scoot. And then, like I said, there's Brandon Miller that I love out of Alabama, and there's Amon Thompson. Those two are forwards. Amon Thompson and Brandon Miller are forwards. So I really want to get a top four pick. And if Cade wouldn't have got hurt and we wouldn't have had all these injuries and things would have clicked, I think that I wouldn't have felt this way. But where we're at right now, don't blow it. And, there's things that you can do. Again, just play young players. Other teams have done it. If, Bojan never gets a day off. He never wants a day off. Even after he got hurt, he doesn't want a day off. That's why I love him. But, the team needs to just make a decision at some point that we're not going to play him every day, or that we're not going to play him down the stretch. Because I'm going to tell you right now, these other teams are tanking big time. I explained how the Rockets, when they were playing the Pistons, they sat their three best players out. And now, after the trade deadline, Charlotte traded their best center, Mason Plumlee, who's been having an incredible year, So they trade him for like a bunch of second round picks, really nothing. Maybe they got Reggie Jackson, who they're probably going to just cut. And the Charlotte Hornets also traded Jalen McDaniels to the Philadelphia 76ers. If you listen to past episodes, Jalen McDaniels is a really good player. He's like 6'9", athletic, great 3-and-D guy, and I said that and he's young, that we would want to possibly sign him next year. But they got really nothing back for him. And so their team, they traded assets, good players who were important players to their team. They just traded them away for like second round picks so that they could tank. And then the Spurs, who they've been in tank mode. They've lost their last 10 in a row, and they traded Josh Richardson, who was really good for them, and they traded him for basically nothing. And Yabik Pirtle, they traded to Toronto, and they got back a protected first round pick, and he was good. Lots of teams wanted him. He's a great defender. He's a real active center. He can block shots. He's terrible at shooting free throws. So, sometimes I think teams could foul him at the end of games. But he's really good. And like I said, he was in big demand. But the Spurs gave him up for basically nothing because they're tanking. And, they're trying to lose. The Rockets, they traded Eric Gordon, and he was their only veteran presence. It was a pretty good player. But the Pistons just, I don't think the Pistons aren't as good at tanking as these other teams are. And so my concern is that, there's three teams right there that are tanking way harder than we are. And I know that our guys, I love our guys. I love the way they're going to go out there and try to win. And I will see. Maybe Wiseman is going to make a difference because here's the bottom line. I go every game, we get killed in points in the paint, like 70 to 50 or even worse than that. So we played the Cavs Wednesday night. Points in the paint, 70 to 32. And so there's reasons for the points in the paint. We give up too many drive-bys on our perimeter defenders, give up the drive too much, but we don't have guys inside. And now I have heard speculation that they're going to even give Wiseman a chance to start. And it must mean that Wiseman's going to play alongside Duran. So, again, that's what these last 25 games are all about, or 26 games, and to see what is going to happen. And we have one of the easiest schedules in the NBA for the rest of the year. And so, we watched this Cavaliers game Wednesday night, and we lose by a lot, 113 to 85. But it was a close game, man. It was right down in the end of the third quarter. I think we cut it to 2. And they had a lead bigger than that, but we just couldn't score after that. We just pretty much got shut out in the fourth quarter. Interesting fact, though, and I always felt like the Pistons always got screwed by the refs, and like Cade never got a call, but the Pistons are leading the league in free throws attempted and free throws made, and that is remarkable. But Saddiq was part of that. Saddiq was getting fouled a lot. Beef Stew gets fouled, but of course. Bogey gets fouled a lot, and Ivy gets fouled. So a lot, and Duran gets fouled. We're drawing a lot of fouls, and that's a good thing. So we played the Cavs, but Ivy only played 25 minutes. So there's this thing, this up and down thing, and it's just kind of weird for me that Ivy had been playing so great because they had been bringing Killian off the bench. So this last game, they decide to start Killian because he was good in the fourth quarter. The game prior, he had a great fourth quarter and led us to a great comeback. We ended up losing, but he was really good. And so they rewarded him by letting him start. But then now Ivy hardly touched the ball. So Ivy was getting, tons of assists and scoring lots of points. And he was not turning the ball over, but, he only played 25 minutes against the Cavs. And he was 3 for 6 and 2 for 3 on threes. He is holding his follow through. He is extending his arm and holding his follow through high, which is way different than what he had done before. And I think I'm cautiously optimistic that he is going to continue to do that, and it's going to make a huge difference because if he can shoot the 3, watch out. But he only played 25 minutes. He had only 1 assist, and he had 4 turnovers. He was frustrated. The Cavs are really physical, and they got really physical with him. He got technical, but they let them kind of maul him a little bit. But he was frustrated, I think, also because he just didn't touch the ball because now Killian has the ball all the time, and then Ivy doesn't. So it's just something that they have to figure out. So Duran, again, he is potentially, I mean, it's just the sky's the limit. He played only 27 minutes. He had 14 points on 6 of 8 shooting, 2 for 2 on free throws. His shot's looking better. He made these moves. He made this quick drive-by reverse layup. He made his turnaround jumper again. And of course, he gets his dunks. He had 5 offensive rebounds. So I read a quote from Robert Williams. It's the big guy, the center for the Celtics, who's really good. He said, "I hate playing against Duran because you got to box him out every time, and he's so physical and aggressive. I hate playing against him." And so that's, I think, a great compliment for Duran. So he had 3 blocks that game, and again 27 minutes, and he had 2 assists. So that's just a terrific game, and he just keeps getting better, it seems like. Saddiq in his last game as a Piston played 23 minutes. He was 1 for 6, 1 for 4 on threes. He did have 6 rebounds, 0 assists, and another common theme throughout the year that I pointed out to you, minus 28. He had the worst plus minus on the team. It's interesting, LeVert, people wanted us, there was rumors, and I've heard people on podcasts that say they want to trade for LeVert, and he's not my kind of player. He's 0 for 5 on threes. He kept on chucking. Well, the Cavs were 6 for 26 on threes. That's like 20-some percent. So their team wasn't, and so we're just lucky. I mean, they didn't shoot better, but they were playing without Donovan Mitchell and Garland. So their 2 all-star guards, which usually take most of their shots, did not play. So that was, disappointing loss. But here's a big game coming up Friday, which I got to believe that we're going to win. We're playing the Spurs, and they've lost 10 in a row, and they're tanking as hard as they can. They traded away 2 of their prime rotation players. Pirtle is their starting center, and again, he's really good. So I just hope the Pistons can, hang on to one of those bottom 3 spots, and still play well. So I've said play the young guys, still play Bojan, but and you can't try to lose. But at some point we do have to. I don't know what we have to do, but this summer is gonna be very interesting. Just because we didn't trade Bogey or Burks doesn't mean that we won't trade them at the end of the year. There's rumors that we might try to send Burks to an extension, which I would be happy with. I like Burks. He has been really efficient shooting for us this year and played really well. I love his smile. He has this infectious smile. He always seems to be happy. He seems to be a great guy to be on the court. But anyway, I hope that I think I said I thought we were going to trade Bogey. I thought we might get Collins. That didn't happen. A lot of people thought we would trade Noel, and we didn't trade Noel. But the fact is that Noel makes 9 or 10 million a year, and he isn't worth that. So nobody's going to trade for him because they don't want to pay him, even though it's just for 25 games, and they need a backup center because I think they're pretty sure, especially now that we have Wiseman. I would only make sense if they would try to buy him out, and we don't have to pay him for next year. He's got a team option for next year, so we can just buy him out and then let him go, and then another team might be able to sign him. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you for listening. Please share if you know a Piston fan, if you know somebody that really likes the Pistons, because that's the only people right now they're going to listen to this are the diehard Piston fans. Shout out to Rusty Luce, one of our most loyal listeners. He lives in Florida, and thank you for listening. He was wondering what I thought about the Wiseman trade. I said just listen to the next podcast, Rusty, and so hopefully he catches this. And I want to thank you again. If you're listening on Spotify, please subscribe. It's free. You just got to click a button and then like it. And on Spotify, just give it a 5-star review. And thank you for my wife for all that she's done to help me with the podcast, and my nephew Nathan. Do something nice for somebody today, make their day better, and go Pistons.